Hello everybody, welcome back to Gelvin Valley. We're on Farming Simulator 15. There's a lovely map created by Wild Wes, and it appears we have another trailer load of straw. So back up the hill we're gonna go. Have just a few more trailers to do as we finished. Oh my, I pressed the wrong button. Now I'm out in the almost crashed into the wall. All I wanted to do was turn on my beacons. Hauling our bales with this auto load Marshall trailer. And I've been having a good time getting some rants in here. This is now the third episode in a row where I want to talk about pet peeves. And maybe some of you by now are going to say your pet peeve is a YouTuber who goes on and on about his pet peeves. But whatever. I know you have your own pet peeves too. So as we crawl to the top of this hill here, I think the last one I mentioned in the previous episode was meeting tangents and people taking a meeting off the rails and stealing time from others. But this one here, some of these you could listen to and argue that are petty, or maybe they're a matter of pride or something like that. This one here, I don't even know what to call it. It isn't really annoyance. Well, maybe it kind of is. It's more like one of those that just leaves you with your mouth hanging open and wondering, it's like, really? People do that? I forgot to look again. I think I'm getting a few thousand each time we come up here, so and deliver the bales. All I want to do is see that money grow. But this one here really gets to me. On the farm, if I can just start it there, I totally get it. I worked on a farm, and when you're out on a tractor all day long, at least in the old days, I don't know if the rules were different. We had no portable toilet out in the field, no outhouse facilities available, and I guess being a guy, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and you gotta go, well, you get out and pee against a tire, against a tree, or whatever you're gonna do. You take care of business and it's no big deal. And of course, when you're out there, um, usually when we were on the tractor, we would take with us a roll of toilet paper, maybe if we had to do number two. Um, but that was pretty well it. And most of the time, that was only absolutely if you needed it. I mean, I don't think there's anybody that likes doing that particular act in the great outdoors. If it's as simple as number one, just relieving yourself, well, that's one thing. But we didn't really, I guess what I'm trying to say is we didn't go out there with hand sanitation or cleaning supplies or whatever. When you're out in the dirt, you just deal with it. So I gotta say, I have tolerance there if you're out in the dirt farming, aren't near facilities or whatever. I understand you may not be able to wash your hands uh, after you go to the bathroom. But I work in a professional office, and I gotta say, it astounds me the number of times in the men's restroom. I say the number of times. This has probably happened over the past any number of years, probably a half a dozen to a dozen times. When I'm in the restroom and someone gets out of the stall, meaning they've gone number two, and they walk right out the blinking door and they don't wash their hands. I just don't get it. And it's like I say, I don't know what you even call this. It's for your own health, uh, that you would wash your hands. And maybe this is why they say the human hand is one of the filthiest places, on a person's body for all the things the hands touch, whether it's this and even washing your hands isn't going to be perfect, but at least it helps. It's something, so those people who go defecate and they can't be bothered to wash their hands, I just, I gotta say, I don't understand them. I just flat out don't understand them. Especially in a professional office. We have running water. We got soap. We have things to deal with it. You're not out in a field where you don't have any of these niceties. And like I say, I just don't get it. So, but yet it happens. And sometimes, and maybe it's best, I don't know. It's like, I hope whoever you are, if I don't catch sight of who it is, I hope you don't work in my office because I don't want to shake your hand if you're not going to wash it. I don't know. Just one of my pet peeves that I'm kind of ticklish about. I think it's important that when you use a restroom, you take the time to wash your hands, but maybe that's just me. Oh, yeah, then this one here. Oh, I know enough about computers to be dangerous, but I really don't like it when my computer quits working. And it always seems to quit at the most inopportune of times. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, if your wife is having a baby and you get into your car to take her to the hospital and the car won't start. I'm sure that would be highly annoying right at that time when you need it the most and the car won't start. Well, invariably, it seems like that's, what happens to my computer. I just had it happen to me here. Oh, what was this? Was that this past Monday? Had a early meeting in the office, and I'm already not a morning person. I know I've expressed that. So I got up early for a meeting. The meeting was at 7. I was in the office 6:30 or whatever. And I boot up my computer. I try to reboot it once a week. And so I got in there, it was working, it was rebooting, and I had something to print for the meeting. And I reboot and I log in, and my screen is totally blank. I don't know when we're wrong. Later it started working again, but I wasn't able to print the agenda that we had or part of an agenda for this meeting that we were going to have with a client. And it's like, that's when I really needed it. It's like, why don't you break down in the middle of a slow afternoon or something, computer, when I don't need you as much? Anyway, like I say, I know enough about computers to be dangerous. I just like it to work. And maybe some of these pet peeves ought to be categorized. This is flat out a selfish one. Of course I realize things break, and whether it's a car or a computer or anything, but why does it have to break for me? It's like that is such a self-pity type thing, and I don't know what you call that, selfish or whatever. Suffice it to say, I don't like it when my computer breaks, or anything else for that matter. What's the next one? Oh yeah, I got a rental contract back here. I probably could turn right. I don't know if I can fit through that one area. Boy, I still need to come through the saw and clean that tree off. Need to do that one of these times. The next one that I put on here is, it's just simply drama. And I don't even know how to give a specific example, but I'm not real wild about drama. So that's kind of one of my pet peeves. And drama, I mean, I know stuff happens in life and there are issues to deal with. Totally get that. People die, people get hurt, you know, those things happen. And of course, when they happen, we got to deal with it. But it seems like there is a type of person who creates drama. I don't know how else to put it. Just with how they interact with other employees or other people. It's like they create drama out of thin air over issues that don't matter, and it's just annoying as all get out. And the times I've been drawn into some of those things, like if it happens at work, it's like, why are we discussing or dealing with this issue that is over absolutely nothing instead of getting some work done so we can all go home? Or so it's going through my mind. But, maybe what happens is the person that I think is bringing drama, maybe in their mind it is a very important issue, and how dare I call it drama? So maybe it's important to them, and maybe I'm not listening close enough. I don't know. But I'm trying to be nice in saying that, I guess. I just know there's people that create drama, and it's interesting. One of the things our accounting firm does is we audit employee benefit plans, which means we a lot of times ask to see information from, someone that we're auditing. Some company will ask to see their personnel files, the personnel file where they put our pay rates and uh, when we go through our annual evaluation and we get reviewed or whatever, those kinds of comments and things are in there. So it can really be some interesting reading. Now, we don't do so much of this anymore, but in the past, when we would select certain participants of an employee benefit plan to audit, sometimes the company would just hand us their entire personnel file. And my problem always was, and this is a reason we don't do it so much anymore, is there is some pretty interesting reading in there that is basically drama. And sometimes, I mean, it was for amusement, but some of it, just while looking for what I'm trying to find or whatever, you run into other things. And the drama and things people do to each other that is counter to productivity, and who knows how it happens, where two employees get into a he said, she said tiff and can't get along, and they ratchet the thing up to management. They torment all their fellow employees trying to gain sympathy or whatever, and then they do stupid stuff to each other that just blows productivity all to smithereens because it can't stand the other person. And whether it's burning incense when you know the other person is allergic to it or hates it, or playing your music a little too loud because you want to annoy the other person because you don't like them, whatever. Drama. Just those things that take up time of other people. And it's like, I want to get my work done and go home to my family because they are way more important than you all creating drama here. So, yeah, I'm not a fan of drama. But surely that means no, and you guys probably aren't either. And of course, that means we never create drama, right? Of course, when it's my issue, of course, it's something real and it's important. Wouldn't call it drama now. Oh, this one here, this next one on my list is one my kids run into from time to time. Um, it's interesting how a person's perspective changes when you're the one paying the bills, and all of a sudden you look at life a little bit differently. And if that back room of your house has nobody in it, then the lights don't need to be on, right? and they don't need to be on because I'm paying the bills and I don't want to pay for the electricity to keep a light on in a room that I'm not using. But if you're a kid and your level of understanding stops and goes at, oh, hey, when I hit this switch, the lights go on, and that's that, and then you leave it that way. And so I know it's practically a joke at home to keep the lights off, and maybe it doesn't even make that big a difference. For all I know, it's immaterial. I don't think lights take that much power. But I guess it's the principle of it. If you're not using it, shouldn't we turn it off, conserve energy, try to save whatever? And I don't know. Whether it's an employee, that uses a firm asset that doesn't belong to them, and they treat it a little bit more roughly than they would if it was their personal asset, or a kid who, like I say, leaves the lights on, or something that happens all the time. People borrow stuff, and I was always taught that when you borrow something or you use something of someone else's, you give it back to them at least in the same shape that it was when you took it from them. But how many times, it's like, I don't know what happened. They'll hand it back broken or needing a fix. Or my favorite is when you lend somebody your vehicle and it has a full tank of gas and they bring it back to you and it's sucking fumes and it's on empty. It's like, it seems like a reasonable courtesy would be if you're going to borrow my vehicle for free, that you would at least fill it up with gas before you bring it back. But maybe that's asking too much. What do I know? But yeah, leaving the lights on or just not appreciating the fact that stuff costs money. Oop, hold on a sec. No, I guess it's not this big deal. I gotta see if I can get back in this one over here. I forget. Yeah, I got a few more to pick up in there. This is just a tight corner for a trailer this size. Oh, come on. Kind of scraping the post off. Leaving lights on. Maybe this next one on my list, and boy, some of you guys are probably starting to wonder about me because I have such a long list of pet peeves. I may be quiet and I may look dumb, but I can assure you I have as many pet peeves as anybody else. And this one here is people blaming others for their problems. And, you know, uh, life is life. We all interact with each other and bump into each other. And yeah, sometimes we are the cause of other people's misfortune or issues or whatever. But I don't think it looks good at all when someone is a terminal whiner, complainer, and nothing's ever right for them, and it's always someone else's fault, or some issue they have in their life, where it's a wife constantly blaming her husband, if only he would do this, or a husband that's always upset with his wife, or whatever. I mean, there's all umpteen relationships, I'm not able to do such and such because of this person over here, or even the kind of person who has done significant wrong in their life and they refuse to acknowledge it because other people have done wrong too. I don't know if that makes sense. But it's kind of like someone who gets convicted of murder and he says, well, the reason I did it is someone cut me off in traffic and I had to slam the brakes real hard and that really made me mad. I mean, I think all of us would say, it's like, well, but you still committed murder. Okay, maybe that wasn't nice of that other person, but you're still a murderer. It's where people are just blind to their own faults and just want to point their finger elsewhere at other people. I think that's kind of in the same vein. And I don't think it sounds very good after a while. It's I have learned, in my occupation, we take on clients, and I learned the hard way one time with someone. They they wanted us to help them. It was well, I don't need to say what kind of, it doesn't really matter. But the thing they did when they came in, they were looking for a new accountant, and they had nothing but bad to say about their previous accountant. And at the time, I was thinking, it's like, well, based on what you described to me, yeah, that is an issue. And the other accountant didn't handle it appropriately. What I was too young at the time to understand is sometimes people that complain, that there's a reason. Maybe the other guy, other accountant or whatever, did what they did, and you're not getting the whole story, and that sometimes people just want to excuse their own faults for someone else. And like I say, I learned the hard way with this. The person that brought it in was one of the snarkiest, meanest type people to deal with, that I have. I wouldn't say the worst, but she definitely was down there. She was just a rotten person to deal with, and it was hard to please her. And so I'm sure when they went and found another accountant after us, she probably told them how bad of a person I was, how I couldn't didn't know my job or do right. It was always someone else's fault. And I have a hard time dealing with people who operate that way. And I know maybe it's human nature. We don't like to admit that we're not perfect human beings. We all want to appear perfect to everybody else, but and we see other people's faults just fine, but I don't know, maybe it feels almost like we can't admit weakness or ever accept responsibility for our own foibles. Yeah, I have a hard time with people like that, and I hope I'm not that kind of a person. Oh, I don't even know what you call this one. My wife refers to me as someone who's very territorial about his dinner plate. And I don't know why that is. When I put food on my plate to eat at supper or whatever, I guess I put on there what I want to eat. And when I put it there, it's mine. And it's kind of a pet peeve of mine if someone would eat something off my plate. It's like I want to take my fork and just stab their hand to keep them from doing it. Which, of course, I know sounds terrible and petty and stupid and all of that. I freely acknowledge that. That is really a bad attitude to have. But it's funny sometimes, and maybe I should take this as a compliment, but it's funny sometimes the people who will do it. I once had a client. I guess I'd known him for a number of years. I probably knew this man for at least a decade and a half, and he was the CFO, chief financial officer of a company that I audited, and we did their annual audit for quite a number of years. And so anyway, I'd interacted with him pretty well. Incidentally, he was one of the toughest accountants to deal with, but that's a whole other story. But he must have felt fairly comfortable with me because, a lot of times whenever we'd go out and audit a company, it was kind of a ritual when we were out in the field, meaning out at a client's office, we would take the client to lunch. Kind of as a courtesy, kind of for PR, whatever, good client relations. When we're out doing an audit of their books, I mean, it's tough sometimes, and we take up their time, we ask questions. It's kind of just the nature of the beast of doing an audit. So a lot of times we would take them to lunch or whatever, and this guy had a habit of, if we went somewhere and I ordered a sandwich or like a hamburger and fries, he would just start helping himself to my fries. And I'm like, hey, those are mine. But what, what do you do when it's your client? If this is your customer who's doing it to you, he paid us lots of good money, or his company that he worked for. What do they teach you? The customer is always right, those kinds of things. So I kept my mouth shut, but boy, did it really irritate me. Um, I don't know, it's just the idea that I didn't like. He at least didn't try to take a bite of my sandwich or that kind of thing. But I'll tell you what, it did kind of force me to change my habit. I used to, well, I guess I still do. Maybe it didn't change. I changed with him. Um, I usually eat my fries after I eat the sandwich or hamburger or whatever. Well, when I was going to lunch with him, I started eating my fries first so I could get them off my plate so he didn't feel like he needed to have his fingers over there in my food. So, is anybody else here territorial about their plate? I just don't like it when people help themselves to what I'm eating, especially if they have opportunity to get some of their own. If there's plenty there, or they have opportunity orders, like just get your own. You don't need to take mine. I probably shouldn't be doing all these episodes. I'm just revealing what kind of a petty person I am and all the things I got to work on for patience and working with other people and yeah, just my own learning. What's the next one on the list? Doesn't show up on time. I've occasionally done this myself, probably, but when you set a time, maybe this goes back to kind of the meetings and whatnot that I talked about earlier. If you set a time to be somewhere, if a meeting is supposed to start at a particular time, then by George, show up on time. It's and maybe it's using someone's time and being kind to their time. There's always the ad person. We probably all know somebody who routinely shows up late. And why do we sit there waiting for this person? They get there and boom, the meeting and starts. It's like, okay, great. You were super efficient with your time. You showed up and we immediately started. But I had to sit here waiting for 15 minutes, twiddling my thumbs, waiting for you. And this happens all the time. And just being respectful of people's time. It's it's a pet peeve of mine when someone doesn't respect my time and they just treat it cavalierly and are late or I know we've had that. I got to be careful what I say. I maybe shouldn't say it. But if you're at a meal that someone has hosted and cooked, and anybody that's done any cooking knows it's only good when it's hot and it's ready and you have guests and there's that one guest that hasn't shown up and you wait till they show up, they're late, and then the food is cold. And I'm not, my wife and I, we don't have a large home, so a lot of times we haven't been, oh, oops, in a position to do a whole lot of hosting. But if I was the host and there was a set time, and maybe this is why I couldn't be a very good host, but if we're going to start at a certain time, well then let's start at that time. And if somebody isn't there, well that's their problem. Especially if it's down to one person, that just for whatever reason can't get there on time. I don't know why we would need to coddle that one person who's behaving badly by punishing everybody else who does show up on time. So I am sure I sound really, really petty right now, but I gotta say I'm having a whale of a good time throwing all this out there. And I don't have no idea who's gonna listen to this, But so it's kind of fun to just record it and throw it against the wall and throw it out there just for kicks. I'm sure anybody listening to this could probably do their own recording of things that gripe them. And I am still not at the bottom of my list, but I see I'm already done with my half hour for this episode. So I think as soon as I get up here and sell these bales, we're going to call the episode and call it good for another one. But I'm going to have another episode on pet peeves, I think, because my list still has items in it. So once again, if you have a pet peeve, especially one that hasn't been mentioned, I'd love to know what some of yours are. And maybe your pet peeve at this point is the sound of my voice. Anyway, have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for stopping by to watch. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye bye for now.